So first things first, raise your hand if you have taken a personal finance class before, either in high school or in college. And I'm not talking about econ. Economics doesn't count. Raise your hand if you took a personal finance course where you talk about credit card debt, interest rates, budgeting. Raise your hand nice and high. 1, 2. That's amazing. That is amazing. I didn't expect to see any hands. Okay, so 17 states currently require personal finance education in high school in the United States. And out of those 17 states, only 5 of them require that the course be an entire semester. So we're talking about 70% of the students who are graduating high school and entering college in this country are not learning it at all. And then the 30% that are, of that 30%, 29% of those kids are actually studying it for more than just a few weeks. So the fact that 2 people in here are personal finance is amazing. Like that is awesome that you have that luxury. So when I was back at Brown, this was in 2011, I graduated. This was one of my best friends at the time, Jose. And I felt like, wow, I have not had any kind of personal finance education. I'm about to graduate and go into the real world, and literally had no idea what I was getting myself into. I remember my first week on campus, I was walking up and down Thayer Street, and I passed Bank of America, and there were these people, they were standing in front with the table, just sort of talking to everybody who came by, and grabbed me and were like, do you have a student credit card? Do you have a bank account? And it's like, whoa, no, like, am I supposed to? Yes, you need to have one. Come talk to me right now. So like, okay. So I opened the student credit card, went and bought my books at the bookstore, went and bought decorations for my dorm room, went and bought food and drinks up and down Thayer Street, went to the mall on Saturdays. Just was out of control and thought, oh, this will be fine. I work 4 jobs on campus, so I'm able to make my minimum payment every month. So I thought that was okay. Thank goodness that I was fortunate enough to be a Sidney Frank Scholar, so my parents didn't have to pay for me to be at Brown. But I did accrue, some student loan debt because I took out a student loan for my summer abroad in France. So I did end up graduating with about $15,000 of total student loan and credit card debt. Okay, so at that time, again, I was working all these jobs and I was making my payments on time, but nobody was explaining to me that the mindset that I had, thinking minimum payments was enough, that was not enough, right? So I had $4,000 combined total credit card debt when I was a senior, when I graduated. And my annual percentage rate at that time was 23% because I got a student credit card, which is one of the highest percentage rates out there because you're young and you're a risk. I had no idea about any of this right at that time. So my minimum payment was $100, so I was sending that on time every month. And according to that plan, if I had just stayed that way, which I thought was a good plan, I would have ended up paying $3,211 just in interest. So add that to the balance of $4,000, I would have paid upwards of $7,000 just to borrow $4,000, or just because I spent $4,000. So it would have taken me a total of 71 payments and a total of 5.9 years to pay off this money, right? So if someone told me, you're not doing enough, you need to double down, let's say I had followed that advice. I'd have been making a minimum payment of $200, and I would have kind of figured it out how to do that, right? My interest would have went down to $1,000, and it would have taken me 2.2 years to pay it off. So a third of the amount of time and a third of the amount of money in interest, just by doubling down and making a couple sacrifices here and there to pay $100 extra a month. If I had heard even that I needed to be even more aggressive and I had put $300 a month, my interest would have been less than $1,000 to borrow the $4,000, and it would have taken me a year and 3 months. So all I needed was somebody to say, hey, Yaneli, wake up, you cannot keep sending this minimum payment because the interest is accruing faster than the rate at which you're paying it down. But I didn't have anybody to tell me that. My parents don't have bank accounts, my parents don't have credit cards, my parents immigrated here from the Dominican Republic in the 70s and stayed as far away from banks and other institutions as they could. So, I felt like when I was here, even though I was nurtured, I literally wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for my Brown education, I still walked out of those gates never learning a single thing about personal finance. So, enter the real world, I get a job, and I finally pick up a book. I think I was at Dwayne Reed one day, and I picked up this Women in Money, Susie Orman book, and I read it, and I just was glancing through. I was waiting in line. I was like, "Ooh, I think I need to buy this book because there's so much stuff in here. I don't know what she's talking about, but I know it's important." And so I ended up reading The Money Book for the Fabulous and Broke, which I'm going to raffle off my copy, which I guess I don't really need anymore, but was amazing. This is really how I started to understand the basics in words that I could understand. because I feel like that is really what was off-putting for me in the financial industry, is that you hear a lot of older folks talking to you in jargon, and it's really just not engaging, and it's also very confusing. So for me, Susie put it in a very basic way, words that I could understand. It was accessible for me, engaging enough, and that's how I really got into it. So I started reading more books, and that's kind of how I got to become really passionate about it. So later on, I read some more personal finance books, and I really got into understanding compounding interest, right? Because I was already a victim of it at this point and had no idea even what was going on. And so the way I understood it was someone explained to me a very basic scenario. So you have two choices. The first choice is you get $1 million today, right now, and you can do whatever you want with it. And then the second choice is you get a penny today, but we're going to double that penny for the next 30 days. So day 1 you had a cent, then day 2 you'll have 2 cents, and the next you'll have 4. So it's going to keep doubling for 30 days. So raise your hand if you would take the $1 million and you walk out with your money. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right, at the time. Cool. Okay, so then raise your hand if you would take option 2. Take the penny and wait the 30 days. 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 12 people with $1 million, 8 with the penny. So when I heard this, I was like, give me $1 million, like easy, I want that $1 million. But for everybody who chose option 1, you would actually be missing out on almost 11 times the amount that you had accepted if you chose option 1. Waiting 30 days, that compounding interest, you're gonna get 100% return on your investment. You're literally doubling what you put in. So by the 31st day, you had $10.7 million. And this to me was like, whoa, now I understand compound interest. Now I know what was happening to my credit card bill, which is why I was never able to get it down. At this point, I was like, I am not buying anything at the mall. I'm not gonna buy drinks at happy hour. I'm not gonna buy shoes. I'm going to the movies. I am going to pay off my credit card debt because this is predatory, insanely predatory, and I don't want to be a part of it. So this was sort of like my wake-up call, right? Granted, I know that was 100% return rate, and no credit card is going to charge you 100% interest rate, but credit cards are charging 30%. That's not that far. It's really not that far. So we're talking about, something that's really similar to the situation that we looked at. You can easily imagine how quickly somebody could allow their credit card debt to spiral out of control just by letting it sit there and grow. And they think they're doing everything right. They're sending their minimum payment every month, not like bailing, and they're not running away from their debt. So I want you guys to think about your situation right now. Don't want to scare you, but I want you to really be honest with yourself right now and think, do you know the exact dollar amount of credit card debt that you have if you have a credit card or credit cards? Do you know the exact amount of student loan debt that you will owe when you graduate? Do you know your monthly payment, what that will be expected to be? Do you know the interest rate of that credit card debt and at what rate it's growing? Do you know the interest rate of that student loan debt at what rate it's growing? If any one of the answers to any one of those questions was no, you are completely normal. You're like most people, right? But the problem is that most people end up in horrible financial situations. So you don't want to be like most people. Okay, so, when you think about it, I can commit today right now to give you the tools and the strategies that I've learned in the past couple of years from my research and from learning from my practice. But at the end of the day, you have to commit to implementing them when you walk out that door today. Because for me, I didn't have anyone to tell me the tips. I didn't have anyone to tell me the strategies. So I feel like I just wish I could go back in time and sit in the seat that you're sitting in today so that if I heard it, I would do it. So again, I can give you the tips, but it's really on you guys when you leave today to go ahead and actually look it up. So 2 years ago, I started my YouTube channel, and this was really a hobby, right? I had just finished reading Susie Orman and a couple other books, and I was really into it. I started to ignite this passion in myself to get debt-free as quick as I could and to share and talk about what I was learning along the way. Because I felt like if no one told me this, I'm sure there's a bunch of other people out there like me who never heard this before. So I put together my YouTube page, and a year later, I had so many people. I had hundreds of emails, and I couldn't keep track of them. of people writing to me and asking me for advice and asking me to explain very, basic concepts, but in a way that, was understandable and was accessible for them.
Full-time job?
It was I was working a full-time job, and then I would come home, and I was really excited when I first started, so I would answer every single email individually, right? I was like, hi, Stacey, I'm so excited to hear from you. And it's time-consuming. So yeah, I've kind of figured out how to balance that a little better, but it just goes to show that, like, the value, how life-changing it can be. I've had people write to me and say, wow, because of you and your advice and your videos, I've lowered my debt tremendously, and now my credit score is so high. I can qualify for a car, I can qualify for a house, I can qualify for anything I want. I would have not known any of this if it weren't for your channel or for your advice. So if this information is so life-changing and so important, and we're not learning it in school, how are we supposed to learn it, right? Like, how are we gonna get this information? So I want to propose to you today that we as in college students, college education, access to college, young folks who are recently graduated, for young professionals, but more so we as in low-income first generation, students of color, we cannot afford to not teach this to ourselves. Like, we have to commit to self-education when it comes to personal finance, because nobody else is going to teach this to us. And waiting till you're 25 and you pick up a Susie Orman at the grocery aisle is just too late, to be completely honest. It's not early enough. You've got to start when you're 21, you've got to start when you're 22. Getting a 2 to 3 year head start makes a huge difference in the end of the day. So I want to really urge you all to take this commitment and say, when I leave today, I'm going to go ahead and do this work and look more into it. It's so crucial, especially because most people have access to this information at home from their parents and from the community that they're in, their mentors. First generation students and low income students in college, statistically speaking, we don't have access to that social capital. We don't have access to that safety net, to that network back home. We're not getting this information at home. So it's that much more important that we commit to self-educating. So, just a couple statistics, and then we'll jump into the tips and strategies that I was referring to. So, research has shown that the income gap, or the wealth gap in the United States, which for quick purposes, visually would be like the gap between whatever color bar on this side and whatever color bar on this side. So, the difference between the blue bar on this side, the blue bar on that side. The blue bar represents the 1700s, red 1800s, and the green one 2011, so the year that I graduated. You can see that the trend never changes. It literally, for hundreds of years, hasn't changed at all. The top 20% of Americans own more than 50% of all of the income in the country. The bottom 40% have to split 10% of all the income in the country. That gap could close halfway. Statistics, research, studies have proven that it would close 50% of the way if we were educating people on personal finance. All we need to do is teach personal finance to young folks before they start making money. That would close half the gap. But we're not doing it, right? Okay, boring slide. I'm just going to point out two numbers on here. 70% of students are graduating college with debt. The average amount, $37,172. And they are not learning how to manage that. So you're literally taking money, borrowing it, so that you can go to school, but then they're not teaching you how to use that money that you borrowed to go to their institution. So we have this huge crisis, and we need to commit right now to self-educating, because it's not going to happen any other way. We can't wait around for the system to fix itself. The last statistic that I think is the most depressing. 1 in 3 Americans have $0 saved for retirement. Like, nothing. Think about what that means when you are part of a group in society that's really pushed to the wayside. Who, here spends a lot of time with senior citizens that aren't in their family. We as a society, we don't value them. And so then when you become that generation of folks and you have nothing saved, it's a very difficult life to imagine. And young people, it's so difficult to picture it because it's so far. Well, 70. I'm 21, I'm trying to live my best life. But that is your life. It will be you in the very body that you're living in today. It will be your body at that point. So you have to be thinking about it when you're young. Combine the first two categories, and you'll notice 56% of the population has less than $10,000 saved up for retirement. I mean, it's just, you can't make a living. What kind of living will you have if you have $10,000 total to live off of? And we can't, rely on Social Security at that point. It's not going to be that much. And then one last thing I think resonates really with you is that when you graduate, you're going to go move to a city, you're going to get an apartment, and you'll be working an entry-level job. So this data shows throughout different cities in America, the median price of a one-bedroom apartment versus the monthly entry-level salary of someone who just graduated. This data is as of May 2016, obviously because the graduating class of 2017 hasn't graduated yet. But let's take a look at where I'm from, New York. One-bedroom apartment is $3,000. Your salary for the month, $3,900. How are you supposed to do that? You're literally spending almost 100% of your salary on rent, not to mention everything else that you need to pay for. So it's literally like we are creating a system that requires us to be financially astute and prepared to make these decisions and to have the tools and strategies, yet we're just not providing them. So this is a little scary, but we'll talk about why it shouldn't be super scary in just a second. So I know you're probably feeling like this, like what? Now you're gonna send me off to graduation and then throw me into this? Yes, but there's hope, right? This is all avoidable if you do the right things when you graduate, as soon as you get out, right? So let's talk about why it's avoidable. You're gonna be super young, so you have time on your side. If you think about that example with the $1 million versus the penny, think about that penny at day 2 or day 3. It was only 4 cents, it was only 8 cents, that's nothing. That's how much you'll be contributing to retirement. It's almost nothing. You only have to put 10% of your salary towards retirement when you're 21 or you're 22. Then think of a couple years later or a couple days later in that example. Think about day 23. It was probably about like 5,000 around there, right? So that's a couple years into your career, it's growing. 20, 30 years later, $10.7 million, we need to be thinking about the long term. If you just want the $1 million today, you're gonna miss out on 11 times that much in the long run. So as soon as you graduate, you might be like, I can't think about retirement, we're not gonna think about that. Yes, you can. You can take 10%, you can take 10 cents of every dollar that you make and you can save that for retirement. So I put together first principles, right? So these are principles that I designed specifically with the community of first generation in mind. Okay, so we're gonna go through them one by one and talk about what it means that you can literally take out of the door with you today and start implementing or think about planning to implement when you graduate. So, F in first is free yourself from debt. This is huge because it requires a lot of self-control, a lot of self-discipline, it requires tunnel vision. But the big important piece here is that you just have to make a decision. Once you decide that you're gonna be vegetarian, that makes everything super easy. You know you're not eating meat anymore. There's not a question. You just have rules and you follow them. So you just need to decide that nothing matters more than becoming debt-free, and that makes everything easy. Oh, do you want to go get a mani-pedi? Oh no, girl, I'm trying to become debt-free. And that's it. It makes the decision so easy. You don't have to go, oh, let me think. Well, my next paycheck is kind of the 15th, so I guess if I go with you today and then when I get that paycheck, I'll have this much. No! Avoid that mental stress. Relieve yourself of that. Say, no, thanks, girl. You want to come over later for some dinner? That's fine. But I'm working on my debt-free life. It's a very simple decision. Once you make it, that's it. Okay? The mindset that you have, that mindset I just reenacted, right? That's going to determine your behavior. It's going to be really easy to say no to things that have been really hard to say no to before because you have the decision made. You know what your goal is. And then how do you maintain it? You budget, budget, budget. A lot of young folks, myself included, you graduate, you start making money, you're like, oh, I don't need a budget. Like, I never had money before and now I have all this money. I just know I'm not going to spend more than my paycheck. You have to be budgeting. You have to set clear goals for yourself and you have to keep track. Are you progressing towards your goals or are you a little off track? Because if you're off track, then you have work to do. You need to rebalance. You need to refigure out the numbers, reconfigure it. Maybe I need to cut out, Netflix and Spotify. I don't need to pay for that. Maybe I'll just go on YouTube, listen to music, whatever, right? But you can make those decisions once you have a budget in place. Without a budget, you're just driving around, you don't know where you're going, right? You need to have a clear map. All right, the I in first is increase your savings rate. So your savings goal should be 10 to 15% at first. Because obviously you're fresh out, you're struggling, you're entry-level position, you're not gonna be making a ton of money, relatively speaking. But honestly, you should be trying to hit 50%. That's the ideal, if not more, right? If you can save I believe the number is 64%. If you can save 64% of your salary, then you can retire in 10.9 years. You just have to work for 10.9 years and save 64% of your income, and you don't have to work again. You have the freedom to own your time, to own your life, as long as you live within the remainder of, 100 minus 64%. You have to maintain that lifestyle, that very limited and minimalist lifestyle, and then you don't have to work again. Yes?
Is that because of the compound interest?
It's because of compound interest, but it's also because of your lifestyle. So if you're living off, for example, me, I'm saving 50% right now of every single paycheck that comes in my way. So I'm surviving off of just 50% of what I'm making. So if I work for a certain amount of time and then saved, 30 times 50% of my income, I can live 30 years without working because I already have 50% that amount saved 30 times. Mm-hmm. But I can't spend more than 50% of my income in one of those years because then it'll throw me off. But after 30 years of time, that money that's been growing over compound interest will have grown so much so that you can continue to live off of it, right? So you have to think about, how can I maximize, right? How can I do everything that I can to save the most that I can so that I can work as little as possible and enjoy my time? And then later on you can do whatever you want with your time. And maybe you do work a little bit more, but it'll be what you want to do, not working for someone else, right? So really owning your time. How in the heck am I supposed to get up to 50%? How do I do it? I'll tell you. Public transportation. I don't have a car. My sister has a $600 car payment. We're talking about a lot of money that people spend to have a car to make their life a little easier, to, stunt on people. Oh, look at my new car. It's like, okay, girl, but you have no money in the bank. So, we have to think about what are our priorities, especially when you're young. If you don't have kids, if you don't have a family to maintain, this is the opportunity for you to really maximize and save as much as you can. Meal prep. I meal prep every single Sunday night. I buy my groceries. I know the exact amount of food I'm going to need. I know the exact amount of money I'm going to spend on my groceries. It doesn't change. It rarely ever changes. And I prepare my meals for the week. When I leave for work in the morning, I grab my Metro card, my lunch, my laptop, and a book. That's it. It makes my decisions very simple. Oh, should I go to Starbucks? Nope. I don't want Chipotle? Nope. It makes it so easy. I have the snack in my bag. I prepped it. I have a granola bar, I have a banana, I have an apple, I have a water bottle. I don't need anything. I don't have to pay for anything. I've already paid. It's already my budget. Roommate life. I have 2 roommates, right? Combined, our rent is $2,100. There's 3 of us. I pay $700 for rent. I am saving so much money just because I'm not spending over $1,000 on rent, like most of my friends and peers are, right? And they hear my rent, like, what? How's your rent so cheap? I have 2 roommates. Oh, girl, I can't live with people. Really? Because you're so young, and you can. You really can. Especially when you're fresh out of college. It's easiest to do it then. But you grow, you get out and you want to have your own apartment, you want to have a studio, you want to live. It's not necessary, and it really shouldn't be a priority, at least not yet. Thrift. Be thrifty when you shop, right? Shop around, get the best deal. Don't just walk in, oh, but I really like that jacket, I'm going to get this one. Shop around and compare prices. Be thrifty, right? You're not just going to buy the first thing you see, or you're not going to buy something online that you haven't really researched, okay? DIY. Learn skills that can help you to create things of your own that you don't have to purchase. I used to spend, I don't remember how much I used to spend. I used to do my eyebrows and my nails almost every week or every 2 weeks. Now I thread my own eyebrows. I do my own nails. Guys, you go to the barbershop, every week, every 2 weeks? Buy a buzzer. Learn to do your hair. We can learn these skills. It is not extremely difficult. It's not brain science. We can figure this stuff out, and we can do this at home so that we can make the investments that we need to make in ourselves so that we can compete, right? Library card. I have a library card. I go to Book and Public Library. I do not buy books, right? I don't pay for them with cash. It's just not necessary. Sometimes I have to wait, which is the annoying part. I will put this out there, disclaimer. I had to wait 4 months. Okay, I had to wait 4 months to read Bad Feminist, and I was on a waiting list to read The Secret History of Wonder Woman. So that's annoying, because those are books that I was like, I want to read this, and now there's a 4-month wait list. Ugh. But it's fine. I'll wait it out and I'll read it. Right? I don't need the instant gratification. That's a big thing people want to pay for now, right? How fast can you get me my food, Seamless? Oh, Seamless too slow, Grubhub. Okay, I'm going to pay extra because they're going to get here in 5 minutes. We got to get over that, right? That's where money's going. Cheapest phone plan. I'm so lucky. I have an employer. My employer pays my cell phone plan, so I'm just like, oh, I don't have to actually pay my cell phone bill. But if I did, I would get the cheapest phone plan and use my computer as much as possible. Google Voice. We run out of minutes, call my Google Voice. text me because I ran out of minutes. Whatever. Like, this is not extremely difficult to do. And especially now where there's like unlimited Wi-Fi plans, like crazy, right? No subscriptions. Like, I'm not paying for Spotify, YouTube, Red, Netflix. Like, if you cut cable and use Netflix instead, fine. But if you have cable and you have Netflix, like, it's just not necessary. Like, be simple. Be super, super simple. And figure out where you can cut back. Postpone luxuries. Like, if you need to take a spring break trip and you have a ton of money, maybe you need to postpone it. You need to be like, all right, can we plan ahead? Can we make this trip happen January of 2018? And then we'll really do it, and we'll go all out. But by then, I won't have $4,000 of credit card debt anymore, right? Be realistic with yourself about what you can do right now. And then no fancy nothing, right? Like, I used to walk around with like jewelry, perfume, stuff in my hair, all the makeup. Now I'm like, I need to see, so I need my glasses.
Oh my God.
But, whatever. But I don't have fancy earrings, fancy shoes, a fancy purse, Louis Vuitton suitcase. Like, I'm just not doing it because that was not in the cards for me. If I continue to act that way, I'm going to end up like everybody else. So I don't do it. I'm super simple. I read a lot about minimalism, and I try to just be super minimalist, right, in everything that I do. Cool. So I think that was everything for that one. So the R in first is retire early by investing early. And this is, again, going back to that penny. If you start with just a penny on day one, you don't have to put a ton, but you gotta start early. You have to start super early. There's two primary ways to save for retirement. There's a lot, so I'm just gonna put it in a nutshell. The first way is to do a 401k or a 403b, right? And that's through your job. Your job sets that up, and they say, hey, do you wanna contribute to this retirement plan that we set up for you? If you want to, you say yes. If you don't want to, you say no. IRA is you do it individually. This has nothing to do with your job. You just say, I really want to contribute to my retirement. I want to start planning my retirement right now. I'm going to go online and open an IRA account just like you would open a bank account. It has nothing to do with your job, right? And the government puts a cap of how much you can contribute to the IRA every year. So right now, it's $5,500 for a single person to contribute every year. So my goal right now, I'm going to try to put every single year $5,500 by the end of the year there. So in order for me to do that currently, I have to put $450 from every single month from my income into the IRA account. But I'd much rather be putting $450 every month in my retirement than paying a car off. That's just me, right? So the benefit of these types of accounts is that the compound interest that you saw, right, from the penny situation, and it's also tax deferred. So you don't have to pay taxes on that money right now. It's going to come out pre-tax. You won't even feel it if you do the 401k or the 403b at your job. You'll get your paycheck and you'll be like, oh, this is how much money I made. You won't even realize you've already saved for retirement because you signed up for that plan. I always recommend that you do this only if your company matches. If you start your first job and they say, oh, we have a 401k, but we don't have a match yet. We're working on that, like a lot of nonprofits do. You'll just say, okay, well, I'm actually not going to sign up. And you go home and open an IRA, put your money in there instead, right? Because the company matches, it means that they're doubling. If you put in $50, and at the end of the month, they're going to put in $50. So now you have $100. So you want to take advantage of that company match.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask. So why would you ever go with the job option? What if you want to change jobs or something comes up? Wouldn't it always be better to do the individual option?
The 401k option is better for some people who choose it because of two things. One, it has a higher cap. So if you are really aggressive, like me, or like people who are more aggressive than me, you can put $18,000 every year in your 401k. But the IRA is capped at $5,500. So if you really want to really put all your money in ball in the future, you can do the 401k, and they have a lot higher of a limit. Also, with the 401k, you can borrow back against it. So you can say, oh, you know what, like rough times, or oh, I want to invest in a house right now. I need money for the down payment. I'm going to go ahead and borrow against that 401k. IRA, you can as well, but the laws are a little bit different. And if you take it out early and then you don't actually use it for the house, there are penalty fees and taxes. So you got to be careful about what you do with these accounts. Obviously, all that, once you're about to open it, you'll kind of look up the information. It's like playing Monopoly. Like, you're not going to get into it if you don't know the rules. You're going to lose. Right? You need to know what the rules are. But yeah, so here's the example I was saying before. If you save 64% of your investment, of your income every year, then you can retire in 10.9 years. Yeah?
What companies or organizations do you recommend for setting up the IRA?
Yeah, so right now I have one with Betterment, founded by a Brown alum. I definitely support Betterment because I think the biggest reason why they're one of the best is because of the data that they provide you with. There is so much data on there. I also have an account with Wealthfront. Wealthfront does not provide me as much data. It just doesn't. It's just like this is how much you increased, but it doesn't tell you the specifics. Every single transfer made, every single penny that came in, where did it come from? Betterment gives you a very clear picture. Lots of graphs, lots of charts. Like, there's so much data. And that's really, really why Betterment's stronger right now. You can also do it with any brokerage, right? You can go to Fidelity, you can go to John Hancock Retirement, like any of these like Fidelity traditional retirement or banking institutions. But I really like the tech kind of ease of using an app to do it. Yeah.
Generally, is there a minimum that you have to do to start the IRA, or?
There's no minimum with the IRA if you use Betterment. So it depends on the company, to be honest. So some companies are like, oh, you need to have $200. You need to have $1,000 to open this. With Betterment, you can start with 25 cents. So I definitely recommend doing it as soon as you graduate. It's really helpful. And then there's a slight difference between the traditional account and the Roth account. The traditional account means you're gonna get a tax break now. When you file your taxes, you're gonna be like, oh, you put $50 in your retirement account? Nice, we're gonna take $50 off of your tax. You're gonna get $50 back at the end for taxes. The Roth account, they're gonna say, oh, you gotta wait till retirement, you know. So with your retirement, that's when you're gonna get the break. So when you retire, you pull the money out, they won't tax you because you've already paid the taxes before, versus with the traditional where you got a tax break, where you're gonna have to pay the taxes when you retire. So some people like, I'm not trying to pay taxes when I retire. I just want the exact whole amount that's there. Other people are like, are you crazy? Taxes are going to go down. So I want to be taxed less when I retire. Whatever you believe will kind of motivate you to make a decision around that. I can't give you like what to do there because you have to kind of figure out what you believe about the market. Yeah.
So assuming that the cap on like IRA is like a cap on like universal IRA contribution, not like you can put 5,500 to one, okay.
A total combined amount of 5,500. So if you have a traditional IRA account, you can put in half there, and you can open a Roth IRA and put the other half there. If you're not sure which way the market's going to sway, you're like, I'm just going to take the best bet, split my eggs in two different. You know, you can split the 5,500. But if you go over it, if you go 5,600, they're going to say, oh, you went over by $100 when you file your taxes, slap you with a penalty fee. So you got to track on your budget. You will know exactly how much you put. So by the end of the year, it's 5,500. Yeah.
So 401k has interest outside of the match from a company?
Yes. So the match from the company is one way that you're getting growth on your investment, and then it's also just growing along with whatever that company is deciding to invest in. Mm-hmm. So that company is going to decide, you know, they're going to put a diversified portfolio together for you and say, we're going to invest in Huggies, or Johnson & Johnson, you know, we're going to pick all these companies to invest in, and they do well, we do well, and that can be 6% one year, 10% another year. It'll probably average out to what, you know, is comparable with the S&P 500 with the market. Yeah.
Hi. So, if there are laws on when you can take money out of your IRA or 401k to use for other things, then why isn't it better to just put your money into a savings account where you can?
Yeah, but very good question. I love these questions. A savings account will offer you 2%, max 2%. Does anybody, do you have 2%? 1%. Wow. Okay. Sorry guys, that's my boyfriend back there. So my boyfriend has a savings account with Ally Bank, which currently has the highest percent of interest on savings, 1%. If you invest with a 401k with an IRA, my IRA right now is at 8.2% growth. Why would I take 1% when I can just leave it there to sit 8.2%? There's also a chance that it'll do 2% when you're 3%, but that's still better than 1%, which will never, you know, vacillate. That will always be 1%. That is the flat rate that they give you. So it's always, it's a great idea to put your emergency fund, like a rainy day fund, a couple hundred, a couple $1,000s, whatever, like 2 or 3 months of your rent would be, into a savings account, and then everything that you save after that will go into this type of account. Another quick tip, I always recommend the Roth IRA. So if you're like, day graduation comes, you're walking out, you're like, I want to start an account today, I would say the Roth IRA is the best, because after 5 years of the day that you open it, you can take back out anything that you put in with no penalty. But you have to wait 5 years. So if you start when you're 20, you can take it out when you're 25. If you start when you're 25, you're starting the clock if you start earlier. Even if you just put a quarter in, 5 years later, any money you put in, you can take out. But you can't take anything that has grown, any profit that you made. So if you had a 10% return, whatever that 10% amount is, it has to stay in the account or you'll get penalized. But if you put in 5,500 and then your car breaks down and you don't have enough in your emergency fund, you can take it right out of your Roth IRA and use it, no penalty, right? Because that was your money that you put in. But that's unique to the Roth IRA, which is why I always recommend that one, because it's kind of like a savings account that you can touch, but any earnings that you make on it, you can't. Which is fine, that wasn't your money, right? That was a profit that the market gave you. Yes?
How do you spell that? I don't know what word.
Roth, R-O-T-H.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a I put together a worksheet with a whole bunch of resources for you all. I don't have a hard copy of it, but if you put your email address at the door in the Google Doc, I'm gonna email that to all of you. So you will have everything that I'm saying, like in writing, okay? Cool, I saw a hand, no? No, okay, oh, there we go.
So I know we're focusing on the immediate entry-level job.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add to what you're saying. As your income grows, you may want to start putting money into the 401k or 403b and the IRA. So depending on how much money you have, you can, to save, you can do both. And even though you can't kind of touch the 401k or 403b for a while, your tax bracket, as it goes up, this is all pre-tax. It's going out of your income before it's being reported to the government. So it's getting put aside, and when you go to pay taxes, that amount is getting deducted from what's being reported as your taxable income. So as your income grows, and it is likely to do so, and if you have the kind of savings plan and budgeting plan that Annalise is talking about, you may be able to put more in and use kind of the different, both of those vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to your question with the 401k, are you saying that that the interest is always positive, that it can never be negative?
No, definitely not. Anytime that you invest in the market, there's always a risk that you can lose everything. So just understand that if you put it in a savings account, it's FDIC insured, minimum what you put in you'll get back. Not the case with anything that you invest in the market, right? But it's not likely that you'll get 0% out. You'll get what you got, a little less, or a little more, or a lot more, right? And that's the risk that you take. But you can afford the high risk when you're very young, because when you look at a data set of 40 years, 100 years over time, right? The performance of the market has always gone up. It might look like this, like there's all those dips, but it will always go up. So if you wait 20 years, you'll see that growth, right? So if you can wait 20 years, you have a high risk situation. You can take the risk, right? Versus if you're 61 and you're planning to retire at 65, you're very low risk. You can't afford for something to happen in the market next year and you lose everything and you're about to retire. So as you start to approach retirement age, you will lower your risk in your account. You'll say, oh, I can't do 90% anymore. I'm not 28 anymore. Now I'm 40. Now I'm going to go down to 80% risk, 70% risk. As you get closer, maybe 20% risk when you're a few years out of retirement. It's a really good question. And then one more thing I did want to add to, because you made me think of it, that there are never limits on the 401k depending on your income, right? You can always put whatever the company allows you to put in there regardless of your income, whereas with the IRA, the government does set caps based on income. So if you're working at, I don't know, if you're programming for Google or something and you're making $120,000, you just don't qualify for an IRA. You make too much money, you need to put it in your 401k. So you always want to be aware of that. I think $118,000 right now is the threshold. So if you make less than that, then you can contribute to an IRA in addition to your 401k versus only having access to your 401k if you make a ton of money. Okay? Or 6 figures out. Yes?
In that instance, say you're 61 and can you freeze your 403b if it's getting too risky, but
No.
not like?
No, you can't freeze it.
Okay.
You would just lower your risk. You would just lower your risk all the way. Or stop contributing. Or whatever money's sitting in there, if you take it out, you're gonna get penalized for taking it out before turning 60, 59 and a half, I believe, 59 and a half. If you take it out before 59 and a half, so say you're 58 and you're like, oh, it's getting too risky for me, I just wanna take it out. Wait the year and a half because you will get penalized. 10% of everything in there will be the government's just because you got out too early. So what I recommend is just lower that risk all the way down. Put most of it, invest most of it in bonds or something that's really, really secure, and you won't have an issue. Are any other questions around retire early, invest early? No? Okay, so the last principle for you, the second to last one, is stop giving money away. This one is so hard. I came back home and people were like, oh, Yaneli's back from college. She's gonna get a nice job. She's gonna make a big salary, more than we ever made. She's gonna help us out. And my cousins and my sisters and my mom, people coming up to me like, I need some money, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. And I want to help. Naturally, we want to help. Who wants to say, no, Mom, I don't want to help you and I want to give you my money? Of course you want to say, Mom, I got you, right? I went to school for this so that I could help you, but you can't just yet. You have to position yourself to be able to be in the position to help first. And you're just not there when you're super young, right? And so what you need to do is you need to like listen to them and, you know, offer your support and advice in the form of time and resources. Mom, I will come over and I will help you organize your budget. Mom, I will come over and I will help you look up a website that might give you a good personal loan at a very low rate for you. Mom, I will do whatever you need, but I am not going to dip into my plan, you know, my retirement or whatever, my savings to give you cash that I can't afford to give away. If this is really hard again. So if it's like literally your mom and you cannot say no to mom, then what I would say is include it in your budget and be consistent. So that mom isn't like, oh, anytime I ask, she's gonna give me the money. You know, you say to mom, okay, mom, I noticed like, you know, you're having a lot of trouble with those tuition, with my little brother's tuition. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna allocate $50 every month for you. I'm just gonna give it to you on the 15th of every month. But she knows what to expect. She knows when to expect it. She's not gonna call you and say, I need $150. She knows that, you incorporate it, right? But it has to be consistent, it has to be clear. If she's not understanding why, sit down with her. Explain your money goals. Say, Mom, look, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. This is why I study so that I wouldn't be, in a tough position. This is what my plan is. This is where every single penny goes. Look at my budget, right? I'm being really tight with myself and I'm paying this much so I can get out of student loan debt. So if I give you $150, Mom, then I can't pay this and I can't do that. That way they can understand where it is that you're coming from. And then I can be like, oh, this one, doesn't want to help, even though I'm the reason that they even go to college. It's not going to come from that place. It's going to come from, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that you were so detailed in your money planning. I'm so proud of you. Like, go ahead, just give me the $50 when you can next month, right? Like, it's not going to be something that comes from a negative or nasty place. Yes?
Can I also add something? What I do with my family, I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger sisters. We're all just finished college. We all now have jobs. And what we have organized between my sisters and I is a type of emergency fund for our family with those rules to maintain the consistency. So we never pay full meals because bills keep coming back, right? We pay plane tickets sometimes, train tickets for holidays. Like, we have actually sat down, my sisters and I, and then a couple of cousins were also doing, okay, when these people ask for help, who's going to help when? So that all the burden isn't on me, all the burden isn't on you, that we're all being consistent and we're supporting each other. So I'm also happy to share, I've shared it with a few seniors where it's already happening. How do you maintain this? And you really do not budge. And having that conversation is so important. Because they do want you to be successful. They don't want to, it's hard to not give the impression that that you feel like they're bringing you down, because they're not really bringing you down. They simply don't know.
Right, exactly. Which is why I always say, just sit down and explain it. Once people hear what your plan is, they're like, oh, maybe I need to sit down and put a plan together like that, right? That's the kind of conversation that is actually really enlightening. It's not coming from a place of, no, I'm sorry, don't ask me again. That's so cold, right? People don't understand. Awesome. So the last principle that I have is talk to a money mentor. It's really important that you don't just lock yourself up in a room and stress and hyperventilate because you don't know what you're going to do by student. Like, there's so many resources out there. It's just that we're not being handed them, so we don't know they're there. We have to go out and find them. So you really can talk to literally anyone who is successful, because successful people deal with money. And that means if they're successful, that they dealt with it well, or they know someone who's dealing with their money well, in which case they can connect you. So it's really important that you connect with people who are successful. Brown Alumni Network is a great place. You can reach out to someone on the Brown Alumni Network and say, hey, I noticed that you have this position, which I'm really interested in one day, doing some work that's similar to that. Also, I recently went to an event that was organized at Brown about financial literacy and personal finance. Would you have 15 minutes to talk to me a little bit more about this content if you're interested, if you're willing? If they say, oh, I don't know anything about personal finance, great, fine, try someone else. But Brown Alum always want to help. Every time I get an email from a Brown student, I'm like, ah! I love helping. I'm like, of course, because I remember that time. I know that I was there. We love to help. Virtual mentors, that's my go-to, right? Because I don't have a lot of people in my family, who know stuff about money. So online, Ramit Sethi, and again, these are all going to be in the document that I will email you, so if you didn't put your email, just go ahead and add it. Ramit Sethi is amazing. Went to Stanford, started his whole brand is called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And not necessarily rich money, although one of the aspects is financial, but like how to live a rich life. So health, right? Career, money, all of it. He's really like a great life coach. Okay, Susie Orman, you guys already know, she was kind of like my gateway into this obsession, right? And then we have this guy who's really funny, Mr. Money Mustache. That's his brand, okay? His name is Peter Adney, and he started this company, this brand, Mr. Money Mustache, which is a blog primarily, but also has a ton of other things going on. He retired at the age of 30. Thursday at 10 a.m., what is he doing? He's like sweeping his garage, watching his kids play. He's not working for anybody, and he made a ton off of branding what he did to get there. So now he's even probably a millionaire or multimillionaire just off of sharing what he did to be able to retire early. So he's great. And then the last one is a YouTube channel that I started watching that inspired me to start my own, which is Mike and Lauren. They're a really cute little couple who live in Florida, and they like just tell you how they manage to like save a high savings rate between the two of them and live very minimally so that they can travel and do all these other things with their money. So they're really great as well. So yeah, what it looks like in action. If you graduate and you're making $45,000, the average tax rate in the US, I'm just gonna stick to the average because everybody's situation is different, but the average tax rate is 13.5%. So if you don't have a 401k match, so you decided, oh, I'm not gonna invest in the 401k because I would only do it if they're gonna match me. I have a monthly income of $3,200, that's $1,600 per paycheck. I'm just gonna do an IRA myself, right? So you're saving $320 in a Roth IRA account. Your rent is $1,050. That's because you have a roommate, right? Utilities, $150. That's gas, electricity, water, heat. Food, you budget it out so that you never spend more than $300 a month on food, snacks, water, whatever, right? And stop buying juice. You don't need to drink juice, right? Just like super simple, right? Transportation, $200, right? That includes, for New York City, the monthly unlimited Metro card is $121. I don't know about other cities, but you know, that's a lot, right? So the rest is like some random Lyft rides, okay? $50, household, Clorox wipes, tissue paper for the kitchen, random household items that you're gonna need to buy. Clothes, $80. I do not buy clothes that often. I reuse what I have. If something rips or something tears or my coat's not working, then I will replace it. But most months go by and I actually don't use the clothes money, and then when a big ticket item comes up, like I need to take a trip and my luggage broke, then I will go and invest in nice luggage because I've had for a couple months a surplus in that category because I wasn't using it. So you would think about it that way. So maybe you shop for clothes every 2 months and you spend $160 because you didn't spend $80 last month. Your cell phone bill, $100, right? Keep the cheapest plan. Student loan, $400 because you're going to be aggressive. They're charging you a minimum of $232. No, don't take that minimum. Double it, triple it if you can. So you're spending $400 a month on that student loan. Your credit card bill, $250. Get rid of that debt. Okay, $50 for laundry and laundry detergent. Toiletries and miscellaneous stuff, razors, cream, soap, toothpaste. And then $200 for fun. Because I feel like a lot of people hear what I say and they're like, ooh, you're not having fun. Like, I feel sorry for you. I'm like, no, I love my life. I have fun. But I have selective fun. You know, going out every single night, going to brunch every Sunday, you know, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month. I'm just being more selective. I'm not completely, you know, I'm not depriving myself of fun or of doing things that other, you know, my peers are doing. I'm just not doing it as often and I'm not spending as much, right? So that's total of $3,200. Like, that's it right there. So there's no trips, there's no like car, there's no, I mean, you could take a trip and spend $300 and not pay your student loan 1 month, but that just puts you back on your debt, right? So all of these decisions that you have to make, you then kind of play around with the numbers, right? Maybe you like spend $100 extra on food last month, now you figure it out for next month where you're gonna cut back that $100. Don't buy clothes, that's $80. Now you just need to find $20 more in your budget so you can stay where you are for next month. You're not in the red, right? So really thinking about how you can maximize every single penny. Like every single penny that comes from your paycheck should be in a category. You don't notice there's no category that says miscellaneous. Like when people's budgets say that, I'm like, what does that mean? Happy hour? Like, what do you do? What do you do? You don't have a plan for those dollars. Like, so they're gonna get lost. Like, every single dollar should be in a category, very clear purpose. That dollar knows what it's doing. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. Just an example, right? Everyone's situation is different, and everyone has a different income. So that's it. Those are my first principles. And remember, the last one's really important. Talk to a mentor. I know we have, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm happy to stay and do Q&A. I know that was a lot, but I'm sure you also have a lot of questions. So feel free to ask. Thank you so much for your attention. You guys were great and you had amazing questions. Yeah. Yeah, if you have a question, just raise your hand nice and high, or comment. Otherwise, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Were you gonna release?
No, I was gonna do the raffle, but go, we'll do it after.
So, earlier you were talking about saving up and investing so that in theory you could retire at this early age and you could still keep going. It seems like that's a good way to maintain that lifestyle, that minimalist lifestyle that you have, which I'm not bashing that.
Yeah.
But if you do want to advance your lifestyle or you want to contribute to your family in the future, how does that work if you don't want to have to live on that same budget?
Yep. Yeah,
when
then you have to
you're
produce.
30?
Then you have to produce passive income. You have to increase your income. You have to produce passive income. You need to create a project that brings income. My YouTube channel brings in. Last month I paid my rent with YouTube income, and I don't even have that many subscribers, you guys. Like I don't have that much going on. But I put in time and put in some effort, and now it's growing. Right? It's only going to go up from here. I'm only going to get more, more energy around it. So create a project that's going to bring you money. If you do something really well, or you have a skill or a talent, figure out a way to make money off of it. Right? And then that's passive income that over time is similar to the compounding, right? It's not guaranteed, but it'll bring more income as people start to hear about your talents or about what you're doing. Figure out, everybody has a side hustle. You do something on the side, you do a different job, or figure out how to advance yourself in your career so that you're not always making the same income or whatever the case is. But it has to be in combination with this lifestyle if you want to have a higher quality lifestyle, some people would call it, then you would have to think about putting in more income as well to the equation. Because think about how much faster you'll reach your goals if more money's coming in, right? So if you can sustain more money coming in, then you can increase everything, right? Cool, good question. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your attention. You guys were great and you had amazing questions. Yeah.